All right, good morning. How's everyone doing? Karibuni sana. Hope you're all well on this beautiful morning, this 16th day of October, the year of our Lord 2024. Good to see lots of people streaming in here. Lots of familiar names we always see here, and a couple of names we don't really see here, but Karibuni sana if you're here for the first time. Welcome to the Afriforex Daily Analysis. John Bogo is my name. I'm a trader with Afriforex. We're here alongside Mitch. He is working in the back office. You can join us with the same link that you did use to join us today. You will find us here from Monday to Friday. And of course, if you do miss out on anything that we do discuss here, then you can also catch up on our YouTube channel. You search for Afriforex, then you should also find us there. So we're going to jump straight into it. At least today we didn't start off too late, but there were some fundamentals that just came out a couple of minutes ago, some CPIs for the Great British Pound. So a lot of weakness has already started checking in for the GBP. So we will be seeing whether that remains to be the case for today. But also quite a number of fundamentals that have already come out, even in during the Asian session and also during the earlier part of today. So you can see right there, we already factored that in to our analysis today. So since we're already here, we can also start off by looking at the economic calendar. So you can see that during the London session, not really much is going to be happening. Of course, we'll be waiting to see what the big boys in London do, especially with the GBP news events that have come out right now. Lots of weakness has come in, so hopefully throughout the day, we should be expecting that. But you can see that during the US session, there will be a couple of USD news events, some cards, so should possibly also expect some movements to also end up happening on those ones. So this is what the watch list looks like today. So feel free to take note of that. We factored in all those economic news events that have come out. So this is what our watch list is going to be looking like for today. And you can see in comparison to what we did have yesterday, a couple of changes. So we'll be looking at the currency pairs that we do not have on our watch list this morning. So we'll start off with the USD against the Japanese yen. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. So you can see the three areas right there that I had pointed out where potentially we could have tried to see whether we could have gotten sales, and also areas where we could have managed our trades. And you can see in the morning when we're looking at the price, this market or this chart, price was somewhere within here. I did point out that we did need to see the market break to the downside of this region and actually hold, for us to look for selling opportunities. So you can see that the market did break and literally held within here, but the market was really fighting within this region. And you can see that where we put this blue SNR, the market just couldn't get past this region to the downside. So for this one, unfortunately, the sales were not really happening, like would have loved to see. And of course, moving into today, unfortunately, not really something that we'll be trying to see whether we can end up trading. Of course, also due to the fact that the USD has also switched sides. So unfortunately, not really something that we will be watching out for. So the next one, this is the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. For this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. You can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out, also illustrations of what we expect. In the morning when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this region here. So we're expecting maybe we could have gotten the pullback just coming back in within here to look for the sales, or if we did break to the downside, remember there was this SNR that I put in here, and I did point out that in case we did get the market coming back in within this region, then we could have looked for some sales. Consider the market rallied down, pulled back in, almost came somewhere within this region here, to possibly end up getting some sales. Not the clearest of opportunities, because even the pullback was extremely messy. In as much as we did have an idea that price was going to come back in within there, but not really the best of opportunities on that one. So the next one, this is the Australian dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one yesterday, we were trying to see whether we could have gotten buys. In the morning when we're looking at the charts, price was here. I had pointed out these two areas, or these three areas right here. So the market did pull back in within here. There was an attempt of the buyers to lift to the upside, but unfortunately, these were not the big boys. And you can see that they really struggled, within this region here. And eventually the market did come to the downside, but also something possibly to do with the Australian dollar. Because, even looking at the watch list for today, we have switched it, looking at the Australian dollar pairs across the board, looking at correlation, taking a bird's eye view, you'll literally see that there's a lot of weakness that's coming in on the AUDs. So I'm thinking that's the one that possibly gave issues on that one. So moving on into the next Australian dollar pair, this is the euro against the Australian dollar. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. And you can clearly see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within here. And I had pointed out that there was a possibility price was going to bounce off this scenario to the upside, come back in within this region here. And you can see that I did illustrate that we did want to see maybe some sort of a slowdown, within this area right here before attempting to get some selling opportunities. And you can see to some extent that literally did end up happening. Although the sellers did show up, but they just couldn't get past this region to the downside. And you can see that once that did happen, especially on the pullback, this was actually a trade that I did actually manage to get, although unfortunately I just couldn't get all the way till the bottom, but at least immediately I took this screenshot. When price was somewhere within this region, I did manage, and you can see that even before I managed it, at least I brought the stop loss lower somewhere within here. And immediately after that, I think it wasn't even more than 10 minutes after that, the market just literally pushed to the upside quite aggressively. And that's the reason why we keep on pointing out money management is extremely important, because you can imagine, had I not done that, then this week right here, when the market came up, definitely would have stopped me out. So unfortunately for this one, we couldn't get all the way till the bottom, but definitely something to do with the AUDs. So unfortunately today, not really a currency pair. We'll be trying to see whether we can get trades. You can't see a lot of weakness coming in on the AUD. So, trying to attempt to get some buys on that one, then it means that we'd be relying more on the euro. So unfortunately, not really something we will be looking forward to. So the next one, this is the Australian dollar against the New Zealand dollar. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. You can clearly see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. Also illustrations of what to expect. In the morning, price was here. I had pointed out this was not a good time to look for the buys. You clearly can't see why now. So I had pointed out either we get the market breaking to the upside of this area to look for the buys. If not, wait for the price to come back in, at least somewhere within this region here. And you can see that the market came back in within here. There was a sign of a big buyer with this green candle coming up. After that, you can see that the sellers struggled, but also the buyers struggled. It only took the Asian session to literally get this market moving to the upside. So for this one, it did work out, although at a very odd time. And the reason being also because, there were some NZD news events, some CPIs that came out earlier. So that's the reason why you're seeing that one has actually gone up. It's because definitely a lot of weakness did come in. So it has nothing to do with the Australian dollar. And you can see that CPIs, seems like this week there's a lot of CPIs, because even yesterday for the CAD, for the NZD, for the Great British Pound have just come out. So it seems like this is the week for CPIs. So moving on into some GBPs that we had yesterday that unfortunately are not on our watch list. So we have this one. This is the Great British Pound against the Swiss franc. For this one, we're watching out for buys. Here you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out, and also an illustration of what to expect. In the morning, price was here. We're expecting maybe to get the price coming back in at least as close as possible within here. It did come in, but just came shy of this area here. I guess these prices were good enough. And you can see that the market went to the upside, but you can see how messy this breach to the upside was. The market was not really holding to the upside properly. And when it did, the buyers were not ready to show up once again, because you can see the market came in, the market held within there, but that was towards the end of the day. And after that, it's like the big boys were just not interested with that. So since they're not going to be looking for opportunities or buys on that, neither are we. So the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the New Zealand dollar. So for this one, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. So you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. In the morning, when I'm looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this region here. So we're expecting the pullback. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. The market came in within this region right here. I wanted to see the breach and the hold. The market did break to the upside eventually, and this was during the New York Stock Exchange open and held within here. But you can see that the trade that we wanted to see work out, at least within the working times, that we have when we're in front of our charts, that didn't happen. And you can see that this one took off to the upside. But once again, definitely something to do with the NZD. It seems like it could have been a really good buy within here. But unfortunately, the timing and when the market did actually move was just completely off. But it's okay. I mean, we'll definitely end up getting more opportunities today, which is okay. So last but not least, we do have the euro against the Great British Pound. So for this one, yesterday, trying to see whether we could have gotten some sales. And you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. And in the morning, price was here. So we did want to either see the market come back in within here or possibly break to the downside, come back in and hold. And you can see that did happen, although this did need to be read on a smaller time frame. And after that, you can see that the market came down, but definitely found some sort of support area down within this region here. And you can see that the buyers have really reacted to the upside. Definitely something also to do with the weakness, that's coming in on the Great British Pound, especially just because the CPIs have just come out. So that's pretty much it in terms of the currency pairs that we did have yesterday that unfortunately did not make it to our watch list. So we can end up looking at screenshots. We actually ended up getting one. Seems like Dan Bickett is the only one who was on the charts yesterday, but it's okay. So this is on the NAS 100. So I can see that you got some sales high up within this region. The market came down, a lot of sophisticated technical management that was going on. I can see that you managed within that region there, coming down all the way till you closed your last piece of the trades down within this region here, which is good. Good to see that at least you got the whole move coming down. We know that the Nasdaq did react quite aggressively off that region at the top. It's definitely switch sides moving into today. It's good that at least you did already start to get the sales yesterday. And of course, in terms of money management, this is really well done. So shout out to you for that, and Bickett, and of course, do keep up the good work. So if you do get any trades, feel free to send them in to us, whether good or bad. We're always happy to see what you guys are up to. Our contact details should be there on the chat box, and also feel free to reach out to us in case you do have any issues, and we will see how best we can end up helping you. So shifting gears into today. So for the sake of guys who've come in a bit late, feel free to take note of what the watch list is going to be looking like. So this is what the plan is going to be today. So we're going to be trying to see whether we can mix and match up the buys versus the sells. So the yen, the CAD, and the USD versus the currency pairs on the sell side. Then we'll move on to the indices and the commodities. Can see that there's also been a bit of switching up within there, but we'll see what the situation is looking like on the chart. So we'll start off with the yen pairs. So we'll start off with the Swiss franc against the Japanese yen. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. And you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. So in the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within here. I had pointed out that maybe, hopefully, we did get the pullback coming in within here, then we could have looked for the sales. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. The market just rallied down, came down, broke to the downside, but you can see that the market was really struggling to hold to the downside, because you can see it was more, most of the day, it was actually holding to the upside of this region. Then it eventually broke to the downside during the Asian session, but we're more or less fooling around within this region here. So for today, what we've done is we've adjusted the areas, of course, based on what the story of price is telling us. So these are the three regions that we will be watching out for. So you can see some sort of a range that's to some extent starting to happen within here. So that means that at least we'll be trying to see whether we can get the sales as close as possible within this region here and as far away as possible of this region right here. So let's see if we can possibly end up getting the sellers, or the buyers rather, pushing the market within this region here. At least if we get the market fooling around within this area, then at least we could possibly try and see whether we could get some sales within that area. But also watch out for the region at the top. It's a bit of a long shot, but there's a possibility price can also come back in within that region. If it does, then at least we should be ready for it. So watch out for that. Of course, at least if we do get the sales as close as possible within here, then you should be managing your trade down within this region right here. So just make sure that you do factor that into your trading plan. So the next one, this is the euro against the Japanese yen. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten sales. So you can see the three regions that I had pointed out, also an illustration of what we're expecting. So in the morning, price was here. I had pointed out that maybe you could find the price coming back in all the way to within there. But there was also this region here where you can see that the market came down, came back in within this region. So still during the London session, came down, came back again, and you can see that at around 3 moving into 430, the market was actually backing within this region. At least at that point in time, if you did attempt any sales, you can see that even if you did attempt the sell there, even if you put your stops within there just to calm down, this was actually a good handful of pips coming down, about 50 pips or so. So it wasn't too bad, and you can see that the market bounced off that region, came back in, and once again, it's come back in within this region. This was during the US session, but during the Asian session, we're still holding within here, of course, moving into the Frankfurt session. So for this one, we'll still be watching out to see whether we can get some selling opportunities. So these are the three areas we will be watching out for. So hopefully you can end up taking note of that. It's more or less the same thing. There isn't any change of plan. So right now, since the market is holding within here, it's either the market breaks to the downside of this region, and at least if we do end up getting that, then we could look for the sells, especially on the pullback. If that doesn't happen, there's a possibility you could find that during the London session, the price could be coming back in, within this area. And you could find that maybe at around 430, just like what happened yesterday, price might be back within this region here. So we just need to give this one a bit of time. Let's see what happens, but also remember the region at the top. In case the market goes all the way within that area, then at least we do know that that's the last area where we will be trying to see whether we can get aggressive selling opportunities. So the next one, this is the New Zealand dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. You can see the three regions that I had pointed out, and also an illustration of what to expect. So price was here. I did point out we did need to see the market break to the downside, then pull back in. It did exactly what we had in mind, or what we had anticipated. So the market came to the downside, pulled back in within this region, and you can see that it did attempt to break to the upside, came back in, actually held within this region. At least if you did get this trade at around this time, this was at around 7 or 8 p.m. our time. Unfortunately, I wasn't on the charts then, but this was definitely a very good opportunity. And you can see that the market did actually rally down, coming down. It seems like the CPIs for the NZD really helped this one in terms of bringing the market down. So for this one, the levels are also the same. So the market has tapped in within this region. You can see that the buyers are pushing back. We don't know how far they can go, but definitely the sellers are still quite adamant. You can see that they are quite aggressive. Looking at the size of the red candles coming down within that area, it tells us that the sellers are still quite in the game. So we'll have to wait and see what happens, because you could find that similar situation with what we've discussed on the other one. The market could pull back in. Maybe you could find it back in within here at 3, and you could find that maybe you could get a proper sell like that. Alternatively, what you could do is actually wait for the market to break to the downside of this area, because there's added risk. If you actually end up hitting the sells within this region, you're not too sure what the buyers might end up doing within this area. It could easily end up getting taken out. So just be a bit patient. There could be a sell here or somewhere within here, but in between, it could be a bit tricky unless you're highly skilled in terms of trading and you can actually read the story of what's going on. Then maybe you could get your sells in between. Let's say, like, for example, within here or somewhere within here, but you'd have to read the story on a smaller time frame so that the risk to reward actually ends up making more sense. So watch out for that. Remember the red SNR at the top, a bit of a long shot, but there's a possibility price can also come back in within that area. If it does, then at least you should also be ready for that. So the next one, this is the Australian dollar against the Japanese yen. So this is a new entrant on our watch list. So we will be watching out to see whether we can get selling opportunities. These are the three areas I will be watching out to see what happens. Right now, the sellers are coming in, which is good, but it doesn't mean that it's time to look for the sells. So we do need to see the market break to the downside. If we do get the hold happening within that region, then at least that would be good. Because if the market comes in within here, breaks to the downside, then breaks to the upside and holds above here, then that means that there's a possibility these sellers might get taken out, and you could find the market literally coming back in all the way within this region here. You could find that maybe from around 3, that's where the market might actually end up giving a proper selling opportunity from. So for this one, we need to be a bit more patient. Let's see what happens. But of course, also remember the yens tend to be quite well correlated. So if you see something happening on one, have a look at the others. That could be a good signal to tell you that the big boys could literally be coming in on all of them. So for this one, this is the Great British Pound against the Japanese yen. So this is a new entrant on our watch list. So these were the 3 areas that we had. and we're still going to have them for now. Reason being, the market has just broken to the downside. Remember, after a breach, we always need to wait for the confirmation. So we don't get trigger happy just because we're seeing some red bars on the charts. We definitely know that there's more to it and there's more to the story that we need to see. So for this one, the market has broken to the downside, which is good. We know that this one is the one that's leading the rest of the yen pairs. Of course, main reason being due to the CPIs that have just come out. So the market has broken to the downside, which is good. Let's see if we can get the market coming back in. At least if we can get the pullback coming back in, at least somewhere within there, then at least we could technically look for those selling opportunities to come down with this one. So let's see if we could get something like that. But we can also end up going up to the 1 hour time frame just to gain more context of where we are. So you can see that the market has come down. You can't hit a sell here. You can generally see that there are buyers here. I know there are lots of people across the world. Millions of traders are definitely chasing those sells and hitting those sells within there. But they don't know what they're signing up for, because you can't see that within this region, there are definitely some buyers who are sitting here. So you could find that there's a possibility the market could literally pull back in within this area. If it does, then that next selling opportunity could be good. If we break beneath this region to the downside, then at least maybe then we could possibly try to look for sells. But remember, we're not breakout traders, so we still need to see the pullback come back in within this region right here for us to look for those selling opportunities. That will give you the confirmation that you need to know that at least the level has actually broken and it's actually holding. So let's see what happens, but I possibly think that there's a high probability the market will come back in within this region. So you just need to be patient. But remember the red SNR at the top, it's quite a long shot, but you never know. The market could possibly still come back in within that region. If it does, then at least we will also still be ready for that as well. So that's pretty much it in terms of the yen pairs. So we can move on to the Canadian dollar pairs, mix and match them up. So we're gonna start off with the Canadian dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one, this is a new entrant on our watch list. We will be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So let's see what happens. These are the three areas that we will be watching out for. So hopefully you can end up taking note of them. So right now the market has come up within that region. We're just more or less holding within this area right here. So let's wait and see if we can get the market possibly holding or breaking to the upside of that region. If we get a breach, then that would be good. But you can see that the market has attempted to go above this region before. It's been unsuccessful. Even right now, you can't see what's happening. You can't see that this was on Monday. The market had attempted to go above this region. It couldn't, and even earlier today during the Asian session. So there's a probability you could find that, I mean, if the market continues to hang around here, it could come back in within this region, and you could find that the proper buying opportunities could be down within here. But there are also quite a number of SNRs, within this region right here, especially for the guys who've done the one-on-one, the sniper. You possibly should be able to read properly what's going on within this region. Possibly could end up getting some proper buys within this region, especially if the market doesn't get all the way down to within here. But at least we know that this is the last area where we should be looking to see whether we can get our buying opportunities. So take note of that. But remember the red SNR, in case the market breaks beneath that region to the downside, then unfortunately there will be no trade for us. So the next Canadian dollar pair is the euro against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, we will be watching out to see whether we can get some selling opportunities on this one. The market has come down quite aggressively. This is, I think, also due to the CPIs for the cut that happened yesterday. So the market has come down, but I'm thinking there's a high probability price will be coming back in within this region here. So I will be waiting to see what happens within this area here before possibly attempting any sells. I mean, if it breaks to the downside, then it's okay. I mean, we'll still have to wait and see whether we can get a proper breach and a pullback within here. But I think there's a high probability price will be coming back in here, especially based on the story of what's happening on the bigger time frame. You can see that this was a major level that has been broken on the bigger time frame. So there's a high probability you could be getting the retest coming back in within this region here. So all eyes, or basically my eyes, are definitely within this region right here. I think there's a proper sell that could happen within there. But if it breaks below, I'm not really a fan of the conservative entries. Quite an aggressive trader. So I usually like the trades, especially within these regions here and somewhere within here. Conservative, sometimes I feel like it's a bit of a chase. But I mean, if it's what the market gives you, then sometimes you just have to make do with it. So we'll see what happens on that one. But I'm really hoping that the market pulls back within that semi-aggressive conservative region. So the next one, this is the New Zealand dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, we'll be watching out to see whether we can get sells. So hopefully you can take note of those three areas. This one is almost similar to the euro against the Canadian dollar. So a lot of strength came in on the cards. The level broken was this one right here, which is also similar to what we've seen on the euro against the Canadian dollar. It's a level that's visible on the bigger time frame. The sells have come in. The market could bounce off here. It is bouncing off this region, but I think there's a possibility we could find the market coming back in within here. I think the best sells could be hiding somewhere within that region there. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens, but it's similar to what we're looking at on the euro against the Canadian dollar. So the next one is the Australian dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, yesterday, we did have it. We were trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. And you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out, and also an illustration of what we're expecting. So in the morning, price was somewhere within this region here. I had pointed out maybe we're going to get the market pulling back in within this region. It did, but just tapped within this region here. Not really something we could have read, but you can see that the turnaround did happen off that region to move to the upside. But when the market came in within this region, you can see that the sellers really stepped in quite aggressively. But also, I mean, something definitely to do with the CPIs that came out yesterday. So for this one, also a similar situation with the rest of the cards that we've looked at. So for this one, we will be waiting to see what happens. Although this one just looks like the market has already tapped back in within this region. It looks like the market is already making a move to the downside, but don't really end up chasing the sells. Don't really let FOMO get you, because you may think that since the market has already tapped here, then it's already moving, then you've already missed out on the trade and you think that it's a good time to hit the sell. Remember that if you end up doing that, you're throwing away risk to reward, because within this region, the market could still bounce off this area. Generally, within this area, we have some buyers. So for this one, there's still a possibility the market can bounce off here. If it does, then at least we could get the market coming back in within this area here. You could find that, just being a bit patient, US session, you could technically find the market back in within here from around 4:30. So let's just be a bit patient on this one to see what happens. If that doesn't happen, then I guess we could possibly wait and see if we could get the breach of this region to the downside. I mean, if these sellers really step in, and they step in aggressive and really take out this region, then it's okay. At least we can't end up waiting for the pullback after the breach, and we could definitely end up getting some sells. And at least those sells will definitely end up being much more easier than actually trying to look for the sells within here. These ones might actually give you a bit of a headache. So let's see what happens on this one. But hopefully we do get those pullbacks coming in, especially like I pointed out, even on the end. If you see a pullback happening on one, make sure that you also do end up having a look at the others, just to make sure that it's actually the big boys who are actually pushing. So last but not least, for the card pairs, we do have the Great British Pound against the Canadian dollar. So this is also a currency pair we had yesterday. We're trying to see whether we could have gotten buys on this one yesterday. And yesterday morning, when we're looking at these charts, the market was somewhere here. We're expecting to get this last pullback coming in before we look for the buys. I actually missed out on a buy within here, I think by about 2 pips or something. And the market took off to the upside, but at least I did get GBP USD, which we will end up looking at in a bit. But you can see that this one really took off to the upside quite aggressively, went all the way high up. Then, of course, when the CPIs came in, they really turned the market the other way. And of course, right now, the GBP CPIs are pushing the market even further down. So for this one, these are the three areas that we had, and we'll possibly, for now, just keep maintaining them, because we also not too sure whether, the breaches to the downside are artificial or they're real. Remember, the only way we can end up knowing is to actually wait and see what happens on the pullback. So for this one, the market has broken to the downside. Don't chase the sells now. If you do, you could be joining the 95% of the statistics. So you can see that the market has come down. There's definitely an SNR within this region here, where the market has tapped back into. We don't know how this SNR is going to react. You can see that the market has been there before and reacted quite aggressively. So let's see what happens. Of course, for this one, the best bet is to wait for the pullback. The pullback could possibly come back in within here. because this is definitely a level that you can also see on the 1 hour time frame, and you can see that that level has actually held and it's been broken to the downside. The market hasn't pulled back in. So there's still a possibility you could get the market pulling back in within this region. It's a bit of a long shot, but there's a possibility. It could, if it doesn't, there are definitely quite a number of scenarios, especially based on how aggressive this move is to the downside. You could find that maybe the market might even just come back in within this region. So you could also watch out for that. But of course, when things end up starting to look like this, you're better off maybe looking for opportunities elsewhere. Because, I mean, if the markets did move and you're not in on the trade, now trying to jump in on it can sometimes end up being very risky. You're better off looking for the ones that haven't moved. And I mean, based on the currency pairs that we're looking at, there are very many. So you shouldn't really be trying to force issues on any one currency pair. It might end up giving you some issues. So that's pretty much it in terms of the cards. So let's see what happens today, but at least we do have a plan and we do have a game plan. So let's look at the USDs to see what they have to offer today. So we'll start off with this one. This is the US dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one, this is a new entrant on our watch list. So we will be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities on this one. So hopefully you can end up taking note of those three areas right there. You can see, and on the 1 hour time frame, the market has moved up quite well. Yesterday, the market was pretty stagnant within here, but let's see if we can get this buyer who pushed up on Monday, possibly stepping back into the market. So if we go down to the 15-minute time frame, just to see what we're looking at, let's see what happens. You can see that the buyers had stepped up. This was during yesterday, during the US session, during the Asian session on the pullback. Don't really look for buys when the market is higher up or so close within that region. Let's see if we can still get, the market coming back in within here. There's a possibility we could, especially if we see that the buyers definitely need a much better price and they're really getting into some loggerhead. With the sellers who are sitting within here, then possibly they might need to invite more sellers to come in, more liquidity to come in for them to actually push and get, proper liquidity to actually get the market moving to the upside. So let's see what happens. So that's one scenario. The other scenario is, of course, if the market breaks and holds above this region to the upside. This buy definitely within that region is much better than trying to squeeze yourself, getting some buys within this area. You might actually end up getting very frustrated. So watch out for that, but also remember the region at the bottom. Definitely a bit of a long shot, but in case the market needs to come in within that region, giving a proper pullback, just to incite more sellers to come in, maybe before the buyers do activate, then at least we'll also be ready for that as well. So the next one, this is the euro against the US dollar. So for this one, yesterday we didn't have it. Today we're going to be trying to see whether we can get some selling opportunities. The market is already on the move. Don't chase. Let the sellers go. Let's see how far they can end up going on the pullback. When the market comes back in within here, then at least we could try and see whether we could get some sells. In case that doesn't happen, there's also a possibility you could find that the market could literally create some sort of a probe within there and the market could hold to the upside of this area. If it does, then at least we know that definitely the market could be coming back in within here. And you could find that maybe 3,430 prices back there, and that could give you a proper selling opportunity. Because we're also not too sure whether this is a range that's forming. But I think if the market comes back in, holds to the upside, then I think possibly the market could be coming back in within this region here. So watch out for that. Also remember the region at the top. But right now, since the sellers are doing their thing, let's see how far they can go. Then we'll try see what happens on the pullback. If it comes back in within here and actually goes to the downside, then at least at that point in time, we'll try and see whether we could look for some selling opportunities. So the next one, this is the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar. So this is also a new entrant on our watch list, and we will be trying to see whether we can get some selling opportunities on this one. So these are the three areas that we do have. So watch out for them. Let's see what happens. Right now, you can see that the market has just started within this area, come back down. Let's see if the buyers can literally push the market back within this region here. There's a possibility they can, especially if you look at how they pushed coming up within this region right here. If you look at the reaction of the seller coming down, this is not really the big seller. So there's a possibility these buyers who are coming up will possibly try to break their previous record, which currently stands within there. That's the reason why spikes normally happen. So when that happens and the market literally holds to the downside of this area, especially if we get maybe the market attempting to go higher up than this, maybe it might just need to come tapping within this region. It comes back, it holds to the downside of this area. Then I think at that point in time, we possibly could get the sellers coming in, and they could maybe even attempt to challenge their previous record, which currently stands within this region. So in mind, this is what I would definitely have as an anticipation in terms of waiting to see what happens. So let's see what happens. I think the best sales could still happen there. Right now, looking for the sales is not a good idea, because you can see that generally within this region, they're generally buyers. You might not really have too much room to move to the downside. You're better off either waiting for the market to break to the downside once again, maybe challenge this seller, then the next time when the market comes back here, it actually holds. Because you can see that the last time when this happened, unfortunately, the market just couldn't hold to the downside of this region right here. But my best bet is definitely somewhere within this region here. But also remember the top SNR, the red SNR, meaning the market comes in within that region, then that's also an area where we can try and see whether we can get some aggressive selling opportunities. So the next one, this is the Australian dollar against the US dollar. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. So you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. And remember, I had pointed out that we did need to see the market break and hold to the upside of this region for us to actually end up looking for some buying opportunities. So you can see that there was a real fight that was going on during the London session. During the US session, it just barely broke to the upside. Seemed like it was holding, attempted to go up, but on the pullback, you can see that unfortunately the market broke to the downside of this region and came down crashing. So unfortunately for this one, there were no buys, but I was really also timing to see what was going to happen, especially on the pullback, after the market came back in within here, but immediately it broke to the downside. Definitely there was nothing on this one. So for this one for today, we're going the other way. So we'll be trying to see whether we can get some selling opportunities. Remember that the AUDs are showing weakness across the board. I'm guessing that's what the big boys want to do. So for this one, let's see what happens. Right now, the market has pulled back in almost somewhere as close as possible within here. The market is moving to the downside. Don't chase the sales. There's an SNR here. The market could easily bounce off this region to the upside. And you could find that since the buyers are still quite adamant, looking at this move coming up, the sellers are just now attempting to come in. There's still a possibility we could find the market coming back in within here. We do also make sure that you look at, I think it was the euro against the USD. You definitely could find some good selling opportunities happening off that region there. But right now, in terms of chasing the sales, this is too small in terms of what you should be trying to get. And in any case, where you're going to put your stop loss, it's not worth chasing 7 pips, and then you end up getting into a loss. You're better off possibly waiting for the market to break beneath this region to the downside. I mean, if the sellers really do step in, then at least if you do get this sell within here, that sell is much more worth it than taking the risk within here. So watch out for these two areas. Let's see what happens. Anything in between could be a bit messy. But also remember the red SNR at the top, in case the market goes all the way till within that region there, then you possibly could also end up getting some selling opportunities within there, depending on whether the sellers are actually interested and if the buyers do actually slow down within that region. So last but not least, for the currency pairs, we do have the Great British Pound against the US dollar. So even before we look at what's happening today, let's look at what happened yesterday. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. So you can see the three regions that I had pointed out: aggressive, conservative, right there. Don't worry about the levels. They've been switched up because of the selling opportunities for today. But the red SNR was down here. The yellow one was at the top. Price was somewhere within here. I pointed out that maybe you could find the market giving some sort of a last spike within this region before possibly going to the upside. But when the market came down, remember I had pointed out, you could also read the story on the 3-minute. When I saw the sellers getting faded out and the buyers actually starting to come in, I actually got the buy within here, which was something almost similar to what happened on the Great British Pound against the Canadian dollar. But unfortunately, like I pointed out, that one I got missed out. But this one worked out pretty well, because you can see that from within this region, the market really took off to the upside quite well. Remember, there was this SNR that I had pointed out that in as much as we would have watched out for this region, there was this area that we first needed to see what was going to happen. And you can see that the market literally came back in all the way till within that region there, broke to the upside, because what I was expecting was if the market was actually going to hold to the downside of that region, then definitely, in terms of money management, that would have called for it. So when the market broke above this area to the upside and held, I literally knew that this was done deal, because once the market bounced off there, you can see that it just tapped it within this region and continued to move up higher. But I didn't hold on to it, moving up much higher than this region right here. But nonetheless, it did move quite well. Unfortunately, we couldn't get all the way till within that region there. I can see that the buyers within this region started to really struggle. The sellers came back in quite aggressive. And after that, you can see that a real fight did end up ensuing within this region right here. So for this one, for today, we're going to be trying to see whether we can get sells, of course, based on what we've seen with the fundamentals on the GBPs. So these are the three areas we will be watching out for, which are more or less the same areas that we did have yesterday, but we will be going the other way. So, I mean, just like we pointed out on the rest of the GBPs, it's a matter of waiting to see whether we can get the pullback coming in. Don't chase the sells. Definitely lots of people are in on the sells right now. If they do make it out alive, then that's good for them. But I think we're smarter than that. So we're going to be trying to see whether we can get the market pulling back in within this region, because it can. And if it does, then at least we could possibly end up get the selling opportunities coming in. So let's see if we can possibly end up getting that. The levels that we had mapped them out earlier, of course, before the CPIs came out. But since they've come out like they have, it's perfectly fine. So you can see that there's this major level within here, quite visible on the 1 hour time frame. So the market has just broken to the downside. But remember, it's never a breach until we actually see the market pulling back and actually holding within that region. So we will be waiting to see what happens. If I do end up going up to the 4 hour time frame just to see and gain more context of where we are. So you can see that we're more or less still within this region. Definitely an area where we do have some buyers. So there's some hope in terms of the pullback coming in. And hopefully if that does end up happening, then at least we could possibly try and see whether we could get some sales. But in terms of chasing, I would advise you not to actually end up chasing. You're better off. I mean, if you can't get sales on this one or any opportunities on the GBPs, there are definitely quite a number of other currency pairs that you can definitely end up looking for opportunities. So that's pretty much it in terms of the currency pairs. So hopefully you've taken note of everything we have discussed. So I guess we can end up moving on to the indices and the commodities. You can see a couple of changes here and there, but at least the one thing that gives me comfort is the fact that silver and gold are on the same side. It's always a bit tricky when they're on opposite ends, but at least now they're together. And you can also see that the NAS and the Dow Jones are also on the same side. So at least maybe today things might be a bit much more straightforward. So we'll start off with the NAS 100. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys. Remember, we're always fully technical when it comes to this one. So for as long as we're holding above the red SNR, the bars should be to look for buying opportunities. If it breaks and holds beneath, then we're definitely in on sales. Yesterday in the morning, price was somewhere within this region here. And I pointed out that either the market comes back in within this region here and we look for the buys, or it breaks to the upside and we look for those buying opportunities within here. You can see that the buys in between were really problematic. The market was really struggling. And you can see that during the New York Stock Exchange session, you can see that the market was back in within this region, definitely within a seller's region, and those sellers did react quite aggressively. And I think these are the sales that Dan Bickett did actually end up getting. So shout out to you for that. And you can see that there was no slowdown of the sellers within this region here. Neither was there anything within this area here. The market literally broke to the downside and actually held. So for this one, for today, these are the three areas we will be watching out for. So the bias is to try to see whether we can get sales. Remember that bias holds for as long as we're holding beneath this region to the downside. So let's see what happens. Right now, the market has pulled back in within this area. There's no sign of any big seller just yet, in as much as we're within a seller's region. So we still need to see a bit more. There's a possibility the buyers might attempt to break to the upside of this region here, before they fully run out of steam. Maybe that might incite the sellers to really show up and we could get something like that. Maybe it might need to tap in within these regions, but if not, if it breaks to the upside, holds above, then there's a possibility price could be coming back in within here, because this is quite a major SNR. I mean, if we end up going up to the 1 hour time frame, you will see that somewhere within this region, we do have some sellers. So we're back in within this sort of range that had happened within here. So let's see if we can get the sales higher, possibly to come back, all the way down to within here. But of course, the mid-level also not bad, because you can't see that there was a previous push of the buyer going up, definitely an SNR is somewhere within that region there. So let's see what happens on that one. So the next one, this is the Dow Jones. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys. And you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. So in the morning, price was here. I pointed out it wasn't a good time to look for the buys. Let's wait and see what was going to happen on the pullback within here. But unfortunately, you can see that the pullback came in so aggressive and the buyers had nothing to say within that region. And somewhere within this region right here, the market broke to the downside, came back in. But you can see that the market really struggled and eventually broke to the downside of this region right here. Could have been a bit tricky getting these trades within here, but at least considering the fact that the market has actually broken to the downside, I think it's given us some clear definite direction of what the big boys are up to and which direction we should be going. So for this one, these are the three areas we will be watching out for. So hopefully you can end up taking note of them. Let's see what happens. The market has come down quite aggressively within this region. Don't look for yourselves right now, because we're more or less within a support region. You can see that the market has come in. Buyers are definitely holding the sellers hostage within this area. It's happened before. Last time price was here, you can see that it bounced off this region quite aggressively. So we're not quite sure what the big boys or what the buyers could be up to within here. So it's either one of two things. Either we get a breach to the downside and the sellers continue with their rampage, the downside, and we possibly could end up getting the market possibly giving us something like that, and we could look for sales. If not, then I guess we'll possibly have to end up waiting for the market to pull back in within this region here. There's a possibility if it does, we could get some proper sales within that region there. So just make sure that you do watch out for that. So that's pretty much it for the indices. So we can move on to the commodities. So we do have silver and gold. So starting off with silver. For silver yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sales. Although silver was in a very tricky place yesterday, you can't see the three areas that I had pointed out. So the red SNR was somewhere within this region here, if I'm not wrong. Let's see. So for silver yesterday, yeah, for sales. So for this one, yesterday, the red SNR was somewhere within this region here. The yellow one was actually down within this area here. Price was somewhere within this area. So we're technically waiting to see whether we could have gotten the breach to the downside. There was also this area that was really giving issues, and you can see that the market just couldn't break beneath this region to the downside. And I had pointed out that that was also an area of caution that you did need to watch out for. And you can't see that the market technically held within here, went to the upside. When it came back in here, you can't see that the market broke and technically held. And today during the Asian session, Frankfurt session, the market is moving to the upside. So for this one, for today, we're going to be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. Fortunately, the level at the bottom right there seems to have held. So these are the three areas we will be watching out for to see what happens. So we do have this mid area here. And right now, considering the fact that the market is just breaking above that region, let the buyers go. Let's see how far they can end up going. On the pullback, we can definitely try and see whether we can end up getting those buying opportunities. So do watch out for that. Those are the three areas we will be watching out for. And the bias is to look for buys. If I go up a higher time frame, just to gain more context of what's happening. So it seems that to some extent, we're breaking to above, this range, or breaking to the upside, some sort of breach of structure to the upside. So let's see how far these buyers can go. Then at least on the pullback, when the market comes back in within here for the retest, I think if you get that buy, then that should be a very good buy. So let's see what happens on that one. But also remember the indices and the commodities tend to have a high probability of moving during the US session. So if things are a bit quiet during the London session, then at least be a bit more understanding. Also, what you could find is maybe they could be doing the breaches right now, during the London session, but you'll find that the pullbacks and everything will end up happening during the US session. So just be a bit patient with them and see what happens. So last but not least, we do have gold. So for gold, yesterday, the bus was to try and see whether we could have gotten some buys. Clearly, you can see the three areas right there that I have pointed out. So in the morning, price was here. I had pointed out that some proper buys could have happened off this region right here. So the market went up, tapped in within that region, pulled back in within this region. And you can't see that from around 4:30, that's when the market did actually end up taking off to the upside for some proper buys, broke this region to the upside. You can see that literally the market broke and actually sat on this area right here and pushed itself off this region to the upside. So hopefully we should get some proper trend coming in on this one. But for this one, we will have to wait and see. We can actually end up getting the pullback happening and the market possibly coming back in within this region here. So let's see how far it's gonna go. But remember, pullbacks are always very important. You know, if we get the market back in within there, maybe at around 4:30, then at least we could try and see whether we could get our buying opportunities. So this is what the plan is going to be looking like on gold. So hopefully you've taken note of that. So I guess that's pretty much it in terms of everything. Hopefully you've taken note of everything that we've discussed and what the game plan is going to be looking like. So I guess we can end up looking at any questions on the Q&A. So I see Alan Ronald there. Good to see you. Saying hi, John. I think it is only a matter of time before gold continues to break through the all-time high of 2685 and reaches 2700. What do you think? Yeah, I think there's a possibility we could be getting there. I mean, based on, especially when you look at the bigger time frame on what's happening, you know, it being the previous record, the 2685 that you're talking about within this region, I think there's a possibility before the sellers possibly start to really come in, the buyers are possibly going to be giving it another go in terms of breaking the high. If they cannot, at least then we'll know that we'll end up having some sort of a double top at the bottom. Then after that, maybe we could get the sellers possibly coming in. So yeah, I think there's a good possibility the market will be trying to get to 27 or maybe even higher. But generally, you can't see that the market has been going up for an extended period of time. I mean, if you look at how the market has been going, and this is on the 4-hour time frame, when it turned around from about last year, October, you can see that the market has been going up. The sellers have been coming in from time to time, but the buyers have kept pushing the market up higher and higher. I mean, there have been some very aggressive pullbacks that have been coming in. So I think the buyers on the long term, especially the big boys who are trading on the bigger time frame, the guys who are really investing heavy, I think those guys are still keeping their eyes in terms of possibly going long with this one. Because in terms of, even when you look at how the market came back in within this region right here, this seemed quite aggressive. To some extent, I thought maybe the market was going to turn, but these sellers within here have completely been shut down. So there's a possibility, yeah, we could possibly end up going all the way till 2700 and beyond. So let's just wait and see what happens. But definitely history in the making. I mean, we've never been here before, but I guess it's a good time to be alive to see history in the making. So I guess that's pretty much it. And thank you so much, Alan Rono, for that. Good to see that you're here. I know that you always give your vote of thanks, but good to see that today at least you've asked a question. So I guess that's pretty much it from me. Not really seeing anything more. You know, it's either one of two things. Everything is either clear or everything is not. But in case things are not too clear, make sure that you do hop on to our YouTube channel. You definitely can find the whole webinar there. You can speed things up or slow things down depending on your liking. But I hope that everyone is achieving as much as you should be. We're trying to give you guys as much value as possible. And of course, if you're still struggling in terms of your trading, feel free to reach out to us. Our contact details are there on the chat box. And also you can visit our website for more information. So I guess we'll see you guys tomorrow. So as always, may the peeps be with you. Bye for now, and God bless you.